My eyes aren't very good, so I probably can't see that far. Maybe I can see something here. Terima kasih banyak the opportunity. So our presentation actually overlaps a little bit with Inya's, but we deal with poverty, at least, in a rather narrow sense, and I'll talk a little bit about it. Just bear that in mind. This is a joint presentation. The presentation and the paper was by myself and by Rihanna Muranti from NATSM at the University of Canberra. So, what's our main argument? Well, I feel a little bit hesitant to be the only person who's going to say something nice about SPY, but I'm still going to do it. In the sense that in terms, in terms of the way in which he approached poverty, and his government approached poverty, he did quite well on poverty narrowly defined. Not in terms of some of the things that Melanie has been talking about, and certainly not in terms also some of the things that Dina talked about, but in terms of the poor as defined by 17% of the population and the target of reducing the number of poor, he achieved, he did remarkably well. His government did quite well. I believe he did not do nearly as well on jobs and on the labour market. And we argue in the paper that really the government squinted on labour market reforms that could have provided a lot more jobs and could have reduced poverty in a much broader sense. The government missed that opportunity. And I think that was a great shame. And I agree, sort of following up from what Sofian said about jobs in the labour-intensive industries. There was a real chance to get back into that, some of those export-oriented industries, and the government missed it. And it missed it at a time, of course, when there were lots of resources around and lots of opportunities to do it. On income distribution, we argue that, well, everyone else has already explained, income distribution got a lot worse during the Yudhoyono years. Some of it, I think, was largely beyond the government's control, but certainly they could have done much better. So those are our arguments. We're talking about jobs, poverty, and income distribution. It's really rather a big map we're looking at. So in this presentation, I'll quickly talk a bit about the record, how we see what he achieved and what he did not, and then talk a little bit about the policies. But first of all, the record. Just referring to Hal Hill's chapter in the book, which is mildly positive, I think, one could say positive. I mean, he draws attention to the recovery of the economy under SPY, that economic growth, in fact, was reasonably high by developing country standards, and certainly a lot higher than it had been under Gustur and under Mega. It was a relatively stable macro situation, so there are opportunities for investment. Inflation was reasonably kept under control, current account deficit, the budget, and so on. It was a continuation of some of the historical policies of good economic management from a macroeconomic point of view. On jobs and wages, there are two sort of contrasting periods. There was an early period where everyone talked about jobless growth. For a period, there were very few new jobs created. But towards the end of the period, during the resources boom, jobs did begin to appear. A lot of them were in services rather than manufacturing, but there were a lot more formal sector jobs, better jobs, and wages began to rise. And we've seen that right through to 2014. Now, I won't show a lot of data on that, but please read the book. the chapter to see our argument on that. Turning to poverty trends and patterns, I think we argue that SBY made a lot of progress there. The decline in poverty rates, as narrowly defined, that is the poor, the bottom 17% when they came into power, was roughly the bottom 11 to 10% when they left. And the numbers fell by about 10 million. That's a big number, even for a country as big as Indonesia. And those are the sort of falls, and they were significant in both urban and in rural areas, and continuous right through the term. In fact, the declines in poverty, if you look at the shape of the curve, were not that different really from what happened under Suharto. And, you know, Suharto's always regarded as sort of done some awful things, but he brought poverty down. So Indonesia comparatively did quite well compared with China and Vietnam. Not as fast as those countries, but certainly faster than India. And on the social indicators, I do disagree a little bit with Dina on those. I think overall the MNG goals, SBY was committed to them and made some effort in that direction. So I read the data anyway a little bit different from the way Dina has on those issues. On inequality, I think everyone knows inequality increased during the period, particularly in the second term, Indonesia was only, in some of the analysis, Indonesia is only second to China in terms of increasing inequality. And of course China was growing at 12–13% over this period, so perhaps one might expect inequality to go up very fast. But inequality rose faster in urban areas than in rural areas, but inequality definitely went up. That's the Gini ratio in that graph. And interestingly, also amongst workers, inequality rose substantially. And it's part of a Piketty story. Those who have read this classic book by Thomas Piketty about income distribution. One of the important, or perhaps the most important message in that book is that its wage income has become much less equal throughout the world. And that seems to be reflecting very strongly in the data on Indonesia. These data show that actually the bottom 20% share of wage income fell significantly, and the top 10% rose very substantially. Wealth also became less unequal. I won't go into that in any detail. Then turning to policy, so sort of the overall picture, I guess, prudent economic management counted for quite a lot. It meant that prices were stable, so nominal wages went up. There was an increase in real incomes too. I mean, of course, inflation was around about 5 to 7% on average, I think, over the period. But so that was positive for the poor. But nevertheless, there were three areas where it was negative on fuel prices, and that's already been referred to. On agricultural policy, that is, Indonesia has become a lot more protectionist, and that has a negative effect on prices and the prices of food, and that affects the poor. And the labour-intensive exports did not come back. So I've already made that point. I think I'll go on. Just to note that minimum wages went up very fast under SBY, and we argue that was a bad thing. I mean, I think a lot of people here would think that's a very good thing, but if you push up minimum wages by 44% in 1 year, as Jokowi did in Jakarta, and then that flowed on to Surabaya and then flowed on to Semarang, that really affects the wage costs and the competitiveness of the labour-intensive industries. And we argue that's reflected in the data. On poverty, so this is narrowly defined poverty area, the contributions in our view were the unconditional cash transfers. They did very well on that over the period. They started the targeting was pretty poor. By the end of the SPY period, when they gave the last batch of unconditional transfers in 2013, in fact, the leakages were very much smaller. And if you compare with many other countries, in fact, SPY did pretty well. The PMPM had a lot of problems, but nevertheless, certainly in comparative international terms, I think people regard it as a pretty successful program. The small conditional cash transfers, that's giving transfers if women had health checkups and they sent their children to school and so on, also seems to be reasonably successful. Of course, there were areas that were not so good, Ruskin and that's the rice subsidies, and where targeting was pretty poor. So it certainly wasn't all good. And we attribute some of the success here to the concentration of the specific poverty programs intended to occur in the Vice President's office, and the Vice President took a personal interest in the programs and put together a number of very talented individuals to work on these issues. And they looked at international experience, and I think the unified database that they brought out was really a remarkable achievement. So, in my view, this was a big positive. Then turning to the income distribution story that I already mentioned, in my view, there were some positive developments, and I would argue in education as well, with the scholarships and the health initiative, but there are some pretty big problems. The fiscal policies have had less equalising effect than many other countries. In other words, subsidies are given to the rich on many things, like in education and health, whereas in places like Brazil and so on, countries are tending to give less subsidies to the better off and to tax the better off more heavily. And of course we know that there's fuel subsidies and Indonesia's low rates of tax revenues to GDP. So concluding, in our views, SP governments made progress on policy, both on policy and implementation. However, the foundations for sustained poverty alleviation those opportunities were not taken. There was ambivalence on jobs and labour, and political considerations played an increasing role in the way in which policy evolved in the second term. Income distribution worsened quite a lot, though quite a bit of it was beyond SPY's control. I suppose if we were allowed to make the decision on the title of the paper, yes. Title of the book, I think we would have called it Consolidation but Missed Opportunity. I don't think we would have called it stagnation from the point of view of social welfare and economic change. But of course, we're not political scientists, and we understand that they certainly have a different view. Thank you very much.